They fired me for correcting a $7 million mistake. That's the short version. The long version is uglier, quieter, and far more revealing. My name is Victoria. I was 36 years old when the company I had given 7 years of my life to decided I was no longer a good cultural fit. By then, I had built something most people in this industry only talk about but rarely achieve. Not just revenue. Not awards. Real loyalty. The kind that doesn't vanish when your title does. The kind that remembers who picked up the phone at midnight, who fixed problems before they became disasters, who treated businesses like living things instead of line items. 3 days later, 76 of the company's most profitable accounts followed me out the door. 2 weeks after that, the firm lost nearly 40% of its revenue. None of that happened by chance. What unfolded over those 72 hours wasn't luck. It was precision. That Tuesday morning began like every other high-stakes day of my career. I was awake at 5:30, coffee already brewing, reviewing the Q3 strategy deck one last time. These weren't casual clients. These were partnerships I had nurtured from first meetings into long-term commitments worth tens of millions. Every number mattered. Every decimal mattered. By 8:45, the conference room was full. Mark from Zenith Manufacturing was already seated, always early, always prepared. Julia from Apex Global was chatting quietly with James from Meridian Tech about their kids' soccer schedules. These weren't just executives. They were people who trusted me with decisions that could reshape entire companies. Then she walked in. Her name was Talia, though in the office she was known by another title entirely. The CEO's niece. 24 years old. Fresh MBA. Designer heels. A role that hadn't existed until 3 weeks earlier. "Good morning, everyone," she said, her voice too bright, too eager. I made a few last-minute improvements to the deck. My stomach tightened. In my world, last-minute improvements were how careers ended. I opened the revised presentation on my laptop and scanned quickly. Slide 17 made my blood go cold. The cost analysis for Zenith's upcoming launch was wrong. Not a rounding error. Not a typo. A full decimal shift. A $7 million campaign had become $70 million. On paper, it looked reckless. In reality, it would have destroyed trust, possibly triggered legal action, and absolutely ended our relationship with Zenith. I stood up. "Talia," I said calmly, "we need to pause on slide 17. Her smile faltered. "I don't think that's necessary." "It shows a $70 million allocation," I replied, keeping my tone steady. "The correct figure is $7 million. The room went silent. Mark lifted his head sharply. $70 million, he asked. "For a single quarter?" "It's an error," I said quickly, already pulling up my original files. "I have the correct numbers here." That's when her expression changed. Not confusion. Not relief. Offense. "I don't appreciate being undermined in front of clients," she snapped. Undermined, as if preventing a catastrophic mistake were a personal attack. Before I could respond, a familiar presence appeared in the doorway. The CEO. Her uncle. He rarely attended client meetings anymore, too busy, too important, but there he was, perfectly timed, watching his niece's embarrassment unfold. "Let's take a 5-minute break," he said smoothly. The clients filed out quietly. As Julia passed me, she mouthed 2 words. "Thank you." They all knew what I had just prevented. When the room emptied, the CEO approached me. Talia hovered behind him, her wounded pride sharpening into something dangerous. "You handled that poorly," he said. I blinked. "I prevented a $7 million error. You embarrassed a member of my leadership team. I protected our clients." His smile was cold. "Did you?" That was the moment I understood. This was never about numbers. It was about loyalty. Not to the company. To blood. The meeting resumed using my corrected figures. The clients approved everything. The contracts moved forward. But the atmosphere had shifted. Talia said nothing for the rest of the presentation, her pen scratching furiously across the page. The CEO stayed in the room the entire time, watching me, silent, calculating. Afterward, Mark lingered. That was close, he said quietly. If those numbers had gone through, I know. He glanced toward the hall where the CEO had disappeared. Watch your back. I already was. The rest of the day passed in a haze of forced normalcy. Clients emailed to thank me. My team worked like nothing had happened. Deadlines. Meetings. The familiar rhythm I had orchestrated for years. But something was off. The air felt metallic, like the moment before a storm breaks. At 5:43 p.m., the email arrived. Subject: urgent HR meeting required. 7 years, and I had never received an email like that. I didn't panic. I saved my files. Backed up my client folders to my personal cloud. Technically against policy, but policies were written by people who didn't see knives coming. My assistant watched me stand. Victoria, she said softly. It's fine, I lied. Human resources occupied a glass-walled corner of the floor, designed to feel neutral while delivering executions. The HR director greeted me with professional sympathy. The CEO sat beside her. Talia was not there. Of course she wasn't. We've had concerns raised about your leadership style, the CEO began. My leadership style, I repeated. Your inability to collaborate with new team members, HR added, reading from prepared notes. Reports of creating a hostile environment. Reports. Plural. We all knew exactly where they came from. We've decided to terminate your employment effective immediately, HR said. Security will escort you to collect your belongings. Just like that. 7 years reduced to a sentence. And my clients? I asked. The CEO smiled. They'll be taken care of. Security walked me back to my office. A cardboard box waited. Photos. Gifts. A plant from a client who once said I had saved her company. I noticed the security camera in the corner, the red light blinking. I looked directly at it and smiled. 3 days, I said softly. The elevator ride down felt endless. 40 floors of trust and work left behind. As I stepped into the parking garage, my phone vibrated. Mark. What the hell just happened? I was let go, I said simply. Silence, then anger. This is about protecting her, isn't it? Yes. We need to talk, he said. Soon. I sat in my car, box in the back seat, engine running. 7 years gone in an afternoon. But the CEO had made one fatal mistake. He believed the relationships belonged to the company. He believed contracts mattered more than trust. He was wrong. And in 3 days, he was going to learn exactly how wrong he was. I drove home through rush hour with my box in the back seat and 7 years of loyalty still buzzing in my chest. The city looked the same, but everything else had shifted. When you lose a job, people expect panic. What they don't expect is clarity. By the time I parked, I already knew something the CEO didn't. He thought he had removed a problem employee. What he had actually done was cut the thread holding his biggest clients together. I poured a glass of wine, opened my personal laptop, and pulled out the USB drive I had kept hidden for years. It wasn't stolen data. It wasn't trade secrets. It was documentation. Client histories. Performance reviews. renewal timelines. And more importantly, records of trust. Every late-night call. Every crisis handled quietly. Every time a client had asked, half-jokingly, what would happen if I ever left. I had always smiled and changed the subject. But I remembered every word. That night, my phone rang. "Mark. This is insane," he said without preamble. "They already emailed us. She's taking over all your accounts. Effective immediately?" "Effective immediately. She scheduled transition calls for tomorrow." Transition. As if relationships were furniture you could rearrange. "Mark," I said calmly, "I can't solicit you." "I know," he replied. "I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you what the hell they're thinking." "They're thinking contracts matter more than people," I said. "They're about to learn otherwise." By morning, my LinkedIn post was live. Neutral. Professional. Carefully worded. 7 years at a great firm. Grateful for the experience. Exploring new opportunities. That was all it took. The messages came fast. Julia. James. Patricia from Lux Cosmetics. CEOs. Board members. People who didn't need drama, just competence. Every message followed the same pattern. Shock. Disbelief. Then the real question. "So, what are you going to do?" "I'm evaluating options," I replied. Always the same words. I wasn't pitching. I wasn't selling. I was simply available. By noon, I had spoken to 8 clients. By evening, 17. None of them asked about Bridgewell. They asked about me. About whether I planned to stay in the industry. About whether I would let them know if I did. I ended every call the same way. "I appreciate your trust. Whatever you decide, I hope you choose what serves your business best." They heard what they needed to hear. Day 2 began with a lawyer and a coffee. He confirmed what I already knew. I couldn't solicit. I couldn't persuade. But I didn't have to. Clients were free to make their own decisions. Especially when service failures piled up fast. And they did. By mid-morning, my phone lit up with messages describing chaos. Missed deadlines. Confused emails. One client said Talia suggested a TikTok strategy for an industrial manufacturing brand. Another said she hadn't even read their 3-year roadmap. Trust doesn't break loudly. It cracks quietly, then collapses all at once. That afternoon, Mark called again. "She missed our contract renewal," he said. "It expired yesterday." "That's serious," I replied. "We're technically free agents now," he said. His voice lowered. "Do you still have our original terms?" "I do," I answered. "Happy to meet for coffee." Coffee is not solicitation. Coffee is conversation. We met. I slid the folder across the table. He looked at me like someone who had just realized who had been holding the parachute all along. "You saved us again," he said. "Partners do that," I replied, letting the word hang between us. By the end of day 2, I had 32 clients quietly preparing exit strategies. I hadn't asked. I hadn't pushed. I had simply been consistent. Reliable. Exactly who they remembered. Meanwhile, Bridgewell sent an email announcing Talia's promotion. Senior Vice President of Client Relations. 3 days after a $7 million mistake. The reaction was immediate. Confusion turned into outrage. By nightfall, my list had grown to 51. Day 3 was when gravity took over. Patricia from Lux Cosmetics called first. "We're terminating," she said. She sent confidential materials to the wrong company. I said nothing. Silence was safer. If you happen to be available soon, she added, we'd like to talk. Next was a group call. 9 clients. No coordination from me. They had organized it themselves. We've compared notes, Julia said. We're not happy. What would you recommend? Someone asked. I chose honesty. Choose partners who know your business and care about the outcome, I said. Choose trust over titles. That was enough. By 5 p.m., 76 clients had formally exited Bridgewell. The news broke the next morning. Headlines. Industry chatter. A 38% revenue drop in 2 weeks. Inside the firm, panic. Staff resignations. Emergency board meetings. The CEO finally called me. His voice was controlled, strained. You orchestrated this. I did nothing, I replied. Your clients made decisions based on your actions. Silence. Then, quieter. What do you want? That was the moment he understood. Nothing, I said. I already have what matters. 6 weeks later, I signed the papers for my new firm. Smaller. Sharper. Built on the principle Bridgewell forgot. Clients don't hire companies. They hire people. The CEO stepped down shortly after. His niece resigned even sooner. Bridgewell survived, technically. But the trust was gone. You can rebuild revenue. You can't rebuild credibility overnight. On my first morning in the new office, I looked around at my team. People who chose competence over comfort. Clients who chose relationships over contracts. 96 of them. And I smiled. Because the lesson was simple. If you ever wonder how much you matter, watch what happens when you leave. Sometimes, the person they fire on Tuesday becomes the competition they fear by Friday. If you enjoyed this story, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Have you ever experienced workplace injustice, or watched loyalty get punished instead of rewarded? Share your story below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more real stories of corporate betrayal, quiet revenge, and hard-earned vindication. Your support helps these stories reach the people who need to hear them.